Hey guys, here's my professional quality setup now with my Newer mic. Newer. I'm here to tell you, don't click off of this video. Just you want to click off of it. I can sense it. Every single video you click, it could be the best video you ever watched. You want to click off of it. I can sense it. I can smell it in you. Because this is how we all are now. This is how we all are. America the addicted. America the addicted. Here in Wisconsin, we drink. But of course it gets far worse than that. Of course the internet is one thing. Of course the drugs are another thing. Of course the pornography, the video games, and many other things. These are things that we deal with all of the time. And of course the internet is justified, right? Like internet addiction is like, oh, well, maybe it's an illness because it doesn't like kill people, you know? Because when somebody dies, you can't make money off of them anymore, right? So anything that could kill people, that's a problem. Now, if it makes them less healthy, if it makes them more miserable, if it makes them consume more, that's not an issue, right? But the issue is this, you know, things that can kill people, things that can make them stop consuming or stop needing medical care that is very profitable. That's of course a problem, right? Now, we hear about like addiction, right? People talk, oh, this is addictive. Well, we have like a compulsive and addictive elements to ourselves, to what we do. So the compulsive is the thing that I want to focus on here. The addictive is merely the rationalization for the compulsive. So the compulsive subject is caught in either rationalizing and saying, hey, this addiction's actually good, it's actually healthy, or it's not a big deal, or whatever, or it's actually just that good, it's so good that it's worth risking my health for, it's so good that it's worth interrupting my life for, whatever, right? They might have some kind of structure there, or maybe they have a struggle about it, maybe they have shame about it, and it could be precisely that shame, that sort of attempt to suppress the compulsion, which gives it more powerful and more energy. That's something that happens, right? But what is it that is the root of the compulsive consciousness? It's the suppression, right? So what do I mean by this? So there's this sort of individualization of the psyche that we see, right? Where people don't understand consciousness. They treat it as just some inner logic, so this isolated inner logic, like you have a true self. Like if you were on like Mars, or if you were like a god or something, like if you had like this ability to be fully like unlimited and unrestricted, this is where your true self would come out, right? There's no such goddamn thing. Okay, you don't. There are people that are more prone to addiction, but this whole notion of like you just have an addict personality, like you're just spiritually an addict, that's very, very stupid and dangerous. It's circumstances matter, right? Circumstances matter. When we talk about, you know, ideation, rationalization, we're talking about consciousness, right? It's not this like isolated thing. You know, mankind is not standing outside the world. It's actually your living relationship to the world, right? It's your relationship to the external, to the social, to the substance itself, you know, that you're thinking about, right? And when you examine it from this perspective, you have to say, wait a minute, addiction, it's caused by misery or like some lack, right? If you're a well-educated person, even liberals are miserable. Like even like liberals, like pro-establishment people will tell you just how miserable and irrational our world is, right? Like they'll tell you straight up, like, you know, this is every government is bad, but you know we have like our necessary evil or something, right? The anti-imperialists, the leftists will tell you the same thing. The right wing will tell you how miserable it is because everybody's stupid except for me, or the minority races are the majority and the whites are being replaced. Every single ideology that we have is trying to describe the misery that we feel. We know that it's real, right? There's intelligent adults who are not miserable are usually evil, right? Or I don't think that there's intelligent adults who are not miserable, unless maybe they have this crazy ability to like reprogram their mind and exit reality, and they can use their intelligence to sort of like become delusional in a way where they're pretending that everything's great. But that's not how it is, right? We know that the world is actually miserable, right? We on some level. Now, I'm not saying like life is misery. There are like these sort of basic things, which are partialities that we have, right? So these partialities, right? The immediate social sphere, you know, food, you know, things that how would I put it, like human existence, human consciousness, when we engage, like you're playing a video game, there's like a closed kind of rational system going on, right? So every time that a human being is living and doing things, for the most part they're engaged in partiality, right? And their sense of like what the world is, they might express it in like church, they might express it through like some type of philosophy, but most people, they just run from it because we do live in this sort of miserable totality. But what is this, right? This isn't just human nature. This isn't some racialism. This isn't the modern world. This isn't just one of the political parties. No, we are put into this state because of imperialism, American imperialism, and what it is inflicting upon the world, and how that reflects inwards on ourselves through a subconscious logic, which is suppressed neurotically, and that suppression is the root of compulsion, right? That suppression or repression, whatever you call it, that is at the root of compulsion, right? It's something unmet psychologically in our relation to the totality of society is unmet, and that creates compulsions. That creates compulsive energy, because here you've suppressed your understanding of the world, and you've suppressed this misery, which is now going to manifest as this hole in your heart that needs to be filled all of the time with this and that and this and that. And it produces this kind of psychological ADHD, right? It's not a psychiatric ADHD, a chemical imbalance. It's a fundamentally psychological ADHD that is produced by this neurotic suppression, which is, again, not an individual thing, but rather the neurosis of the guilty empire itself. The empire is guilty. It's afraid of the people. It's afraid of the American people, and so it suppresses people's consciousness and turns people into these compulsive people who engage constantly in partialities because they refuse to deal with and acknowledge the totality, right? These partialities become a substitute for the totality in the mind of the addict or the shooter or the cultist, right? Where whatever the partiality is here, whatever the thing is that allows you to have a rational and logical system that fits into your brain somehow, right? That desire to have a singular rational system replace the totality is kind of what creates these people who are kind of like trapped animals with no way out but death, because in order to produce this rationality, they then become fundamentalist and believe that the world must be transformed in accordance with their own visions. And that's not something that leads to anything productive, right? That's what we saw like with Luigi Mangione, for example, right? He substituted this sort of partial conflict for the universal one and ended up having almost no effect on the universal one, except for being like a counter example. Now this sort of like partial coping that we have often manifests as hypersociality, nihilism, and escapism, right? This is what we see far more than like overt drug addiction. This is an extremely common thing. You meet these people who, if you don't act like everything's great all the time and pretend to have a good time, if you talk about anything serious, they will immediately respond by either making fun of it, making fun of you, right? They're laughing. They laugh at everything and everyone, laugh as your head is on the chopping block because they're watching like late night TV. It's making fun of everything, right? It's making fun of life and death, and it's turning people into these sort of like hyper-social nihilists where like laughter is just this annihilating force, destroying everything, right? And these people, these acidic, toxic people become evil in doing so, and they think they're the good ones, and they think you're the evil one for like souring their vibe. Again, I'm not against engaging in these sort of basic human partialities of sociality, food, music, all of these things. I'm not against that at all, but I'm completely against people who then make it into their life and who never confront this totality, because then they're driven by this escapism, by this compulsion. And this is at the root of the American addictive personality. It's the denial of our empire that is actually at the root of this. Whether or not the person consciously or immediately is aware of what the American empire is doing, their ignorance suppresses this consciousness that's constantly trying to emerge, that's constantly dragging them down, that's constantly, and they don't know what it is. And even when you know what it is, it still drags you down. But at the very least, you can recognize it and say, like, maybe we should do something about it, right? Maybe the neurotic who feels like he's out of control, he becomes neurotic because he feels like he has no control. Maybe this neurotic, by exercising some control on their immediate area, by exercising some type of control in the informational war, perhaps, to push this message, by exercising some type of control in their life and in a collective way, in a directed, conscious way, this neurotic can deal with some of his neurosis in doing so, right? He can feel like he actually has a sense of control, feel like he actually has influence over the world itself, as opposed to just being lost in the breeze, which pushes people into this need to operate in controlled partial systems where they're the god, like a video game, for example, right? Now, again, I'm not against these partial frameworks. Fiction is a great example of a partiality, right? The fictional world that's created is kind of like this small, digestible universe, right? And in doing so, you can actually take, like, real reality and turn it into something comprehensible, right? And you can make analogies, you can concentrate reality into these stories. These stories can enhance reality just as much as they're capable of destroying it, but usually the ones that destroy reality have to do so despite their main message, which is based in it, because those which completely destroy reality are simply nihilistic stories, simply unattractive stories that don't represent people's real lives. They can't sell, they can't do anything, right? So it's stories themselves, if they're appealing, it's because they're reflective of some basic reality, and because of that, their meaning is not nothing, simply because it's not constantly dealing with the totality in some kind of agonizing way of endless existential destruction. That's not what I'm asking for. But just hear me out. Like, if you can understand where I'm coming from with this, if you can understand my explanation of addiction and stuff, it's not about health, okay? Yes, your health matters. Yes, if you're addicted to something, it's bad for your health. But the idea that, okay, you were just going to tell people how bad it is for their health. Here's how bad it is for your health. Here's how bad it is for your health. That's not going to work. It doesn't work. You have to deal with the actual root issue, and to do this you need like a kind of root canal where you dig in and you force them to acknowledge the reality of things, and in doing so you can at the very least free them from not knowing what it is that's driving this sort of compulsion and this sort of gravity pulling them down and negating them all the time. At the very least you can make them conscious of the real America, of what America actually means, and in doing so you can make them aware of this, and further, at the very least, you can recognize the role of history, the role of humanity, the meaning of the progress of society, and the way that it goes historically over time, such that this thing that we're in, it's not escapable, it will end, it is ending. Right? This empire is ending. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, so you don't have to dwell in this misery endlessly, right? And it's that hope, that little flame of hope, that keeps people moving, keeps them alive, and hopefully can drive them to do something more productive than being driven constantly by their compulsions. Thank you.